so me mamu nyina kwa ba the mobile MTV so jumadi de my health checks saving lives with Dr. Bobson Ateko and one ka someone song for him me dia ne Lily M Afro-songtress me so share me out me frame me Maame colors na meje o fel so na di apomodin ho enkomo abusua dwumakuo bi so masene na ma metumi de dwumadi de brewo Golden Palace Hotel Limited was a man kese e ho anso na Lilian Palace Event Center so abusua mesero se wo pe bia ada ana pe bia edi wudwuma papa bia enfo ni nkire bia se Golden Palace Hotel Limited na omonnom wa omo number no ya de egu screen na se mesero so wo de obetimi afa na watimi nso afre wonom Steam group of companies me say ho so na Steamer Records nso ehye ayebusuakuo baako abusuan dwumadi a omudia ye akwanyo ene adansie omuma afutuo wo sa dwumadi ho omo aso so hwe entertainment industry ho sensem omudi ho dwuma omo number go screen na se mehye so betimi afre wo na omadom anomaye wo moa Hairport salon dear omo no moye miti yo hu nyina da ho ka wonom afa Hairport salon omo nkrabata ne doors no etu atese omo numbers no egu screen na se wo pese ho ye fe pa dia e fa tie ye ho dia mesro se fa number no free Hairport salon Lily's Bead Hub dear eba ahwene ahodo pa si ye digu yasene mu si ye de to ye nan ye de to ye kom ye de hye aso ye nsa bebia fa wo de ye ma no ye pa ho fe ne sro bomodi a na hwehwe Lily's Bead Hub na oma wo ho nye fe wo ahwene ye ho omo numbers no ego screen na se mesese frɛ wo mo na omo enya wo emwa Abusuya yumadi de wo hwe wo Lily MTV so ewo YouTube mesrɛ wo sɛ wo hwe bia na sɛ wo di achi ewo apomudin ho pa dia mesrɛ sɛ wo nko amenhwe na mfa share it don't just share this you must also subscribe to this page so that whatever we learn here is an educative platform you can also learn a lot from here whilst you share with your friends. If you go to TikTok, it's Lily MTV. If you are on Facebook, it's Lily MTV. If you are on Instagram, it's Lily MTV. If you are on Twitter, it is Lily M, the icon. You are watching My Health Checks with Dr. Bobson Ateko. And now you have typhoid and who asem. Uni me ya adwene se typhoid de kum nipa pa wo man mu ene wiase afa na nyina da se be siw so a anhwe ni ya na ne ko aye nkontene na aye nkona eno nti na doctor se ne obene e ba bedi ho enkomo doctor mo akwa ba pa de oba ene efie ha so bio de bia se de me kan wa ya de se watu ho ama tu ho acha dwumade na fom na fom kra so minim se mpa ye ne sebe determination nti we will be able to achieve what we want to achieve. That is saving lives of the people. I mean, the ordinary people, those who are on the streets, wherever you find yourself, doctor says he's here to save your life. The doctor, typhoid fever. With me, my brief intro of typhoid fever one.
So you can't typhoid.
Okay.
So typhoid diarrhea infection is an infection that is caused by bacteria Salmonella typhi.
Okay.
And I say paratyphi. Paratyphi. Salmonella typhi is a bacteria that causes this typhoid diarrhea. Typhoid fever, it has a persistent increase in temperature as a result of the typhoid infection.
It's an infection. Typhoid fever is an infection.
It's an infection caused by Salmonella typhi. Salmonella typhi. Usually, typhoid diarrhea free, generally unhygienic conditions. The route of transmission, you can say a fecal-oral route. Fecal-oral, just say through feces. So usually the organisms can house in your GIT and I say your intestines. So that when you pass through, if you don't keep hygienic conditions, like maybe wash your hand very well and all those things, you can easily transmit it to another person. This disease came about, there's a story behind it. I'm just going to give a summary of the whole story.
Okay.
We call it Typhoid Mary. There was a woman.
Typhoid Mary.
There's a woman called Mary, right? I've forgotten where it was. One of the countries, but it's not in Africa. That used to sell food in a small community. I noticed that most of the people started developing these symptoms. Some of them, they were constipating, running, vomiting, like feeling unwell. Some people were even dying and all. So they didn't know what was causing the problem. So later on, long story short, right, they realized that this woman that was selling the food was not keeping hygienic conditions. Even when she used the washroom, as soon as she come back, just throw some water on her hand, use that to prepare food. Most of the people used to buy the food from her. So they noticed that she was a carrier of the bacteria, the Salmonella typhi. You can be a carrier without being infected. You can have, or sometimes you'll be treated and still be a carrier of the bacteria.
I see.
So she was a bacteria. She was a carrier of this bacteria, and then she kept working even with unhygienic conditions for people. So he was transmitted the bacteria to people.
I see.
Who say, okay, it's Mary who has been transmitting this disease to people. And then the name Typhoid Mary came about. If you want to know the full story, just Google Typhoid Mary and then read about it. That's how come we got to. There's a story around how typhoid, the diagnosis came about. So generally, you get typhoid from unhygienic conditions. How if you don't treat your vegetables very well before eating them, the salads that we eat, the food, like generally, especially in regards to food that we are ingesting, it's very important that our food, or generally, we maintain hygienic conditions around where we cook, or the food that we are going to eat, we treat them very well so that we don't get. So the major route how we get these Salmonella typhi infection is through the kind of food that we eat or the things that we ingest. Basically.
I see. Not just me doctor say ni ti a wotwa ne say efi na the typhoid ba. Efi na typhoid na so mwa ne kogu sabio uyemu a na wakosie. Okosie na just wakosie wo intestines ni mu na afa eho afa sabio wajana mu na aspray one mu ye nwansena nso no ye ntafrei de omo ba ko fa duane no na odi nso na no odi abesi wo nso so waduane so ti waja waduane asi wo pacha basa o kitchen basa doctor say ya nkasa ye fi ayeye no eno na de typhoid e de ema yen ti that doctor anti mate wasepa ti se ma kire me ahwefo nso typhoid
wa kire mu ye pa o kire mu ka kire
me ka typhoid and typhoid. What are the signs and symptoms?
So some of the classical signs of typhoid disease, like the fever comes in. Fever basically just an increase in the temperature. So in typhoid fever, there's persistent increase in temperature. Unlike malaria fever, that usually the fever like is a little erratic and I say spasmodic, like a back. Kakra, won't say why she kakra fine. But the typhoid usually comes with fever that is persistent, and sometimes even after treatment. So people usually, because the symptoms are a little similar, people will suspect that they may have malaria. So usually after treatment of malaria, if there's still persistent fever after the treatment of malaria, your attention should go to enteric fever. Enteric fever is the same as typhoid fever. Your mind should go on enteric fever or typhoid fever because like typhoid causes this persistent fever. Aside the fever, usually at the early stages, you may cause constipation. So you may be constipated for a while. So the constipation can come with some of these pain in your stomach because of the constipation. Usually after a week, maybe during the second week of the illness, it can change to stomach pain and diarrhea.
I see. After constipation,
so, yes. So it can alternate. So like constipation can alternate with the diarrhea. So alternating constipation and diarrhea comes in. Another thing that you may have is severe headache. One of the symptoms of the typhoid, you can have severe headache. It can cause dry cough.
I see.
It can cause dry cough. You can be coughing very dry, and then the headache, and then it can cause confusion. It can cause CNS manifestation. So it can cause some of these psychosis. You can begin to act very abnormal. It can cause psychosis, confusion. Sometimes you become confused. Where are you? You don't even know where you are. Like that kind of mental can alter your mental status. So generally, these are some of the classical symptoms that you have when you have typhoid. Of course, the nausea and vomiting and other things also can come in. But classically, these are the headaches, the dry coughs, the persistent fever, the diarrhea, constipation that alternates with diarrhea, stomach pain, that kind of thing. all these things are the major like classical signs of typhoid, especially in our setting here in Ghana.
I see. The typhoid, malaria.
It depends. I mean, like in both instances, no, when you don't treat it very well and it develops into complications, it becomes very deadly. So both malaria and typhoid, no, if you do not manage it very well, especially at the early stages, no, now developing into complications, both of them are very fatal.
I see. So complications is now many.
Okay, so with regards to typhoid, because intestines, if the typhoid persisted like for a long time, I can develop what is known as perforation. Typhoid perforations. So your intestines can a bit more perforated intestines.
Intestines.
Okay. There no. What will happen is that you begin to develop like the contents of the intestine now moves into your peritoneal cavity. So peritoneal cavity, baby area now intestine near when you hanging around there, that place is sterile. Like but when the contents of the intestine begin to release into your peritoneal cavity now, they cause peritonitis, which is very dangerous.
I see.
Because with the peritonitis, it can cause severe systemic infection, and that can lead to sepsis and death. It can easily kill you. So when it happens like that, now peritonitis, your stomach become a little distended. And as I said, the content of your intestines I see. The peritoneal cavity, and it can cause severe infection, can cause septic shock, and easily kill you. So typhoid perforation is one of the major complications associated with typhoid. That is, if you don't manage it well, and then you have persistent typhoid infections now, the perforation is one of the major things that can be a very serious problem. So I said I can cause some complications to your intestines, diverticulitis. Any other day, sometimes intestine let me swell around the intestine. It is not pleasant.
I see. And that typhoid. So how do I manage? Because typhoid is a common. Is this something they are not doing right? What is the reason? Typhoid. Still, is this something that the person isn't doing right?
So with regards to the typhoid, hygienic condition, especially in the foods near you have to maintain, because there's a chance of reinfection. It's caused by a bacteria. So today, if I treat it, if I take drugs to treat it, tomorrow if I go and eat another food that contains the salmonella, a food that is contaminated with salmonella, I will still get infected again. So one of the reasons why is reinfection, because you may try maintaining a hygienic condition with regards to our foods. So even after treatment, we get reinfected too again. Do you understand? And then there's also resistance, drug resistance. You see, the salmonella is a bacterial infection. So usually the antibiotics and the treaty the infection.
The salmonella.
The salmonella, the bacteria. Antibiotics they do someone. What happens is that some people abuse antibiotics so much that sometimes, like when it's time for you, if you want to use the antibiotics to treat some of these infections like the typhoid now, it becomes a problem. Like the usual dose now, as under normal circumstances, supposed to treat it Now, if you take those usual doses now, because of the resistance, you don't really get adequate responses to it. So this is to advocate like antimicrobial resistance is very real. Some of these antimicrobial resistance, and until sometimes the antibiotics now it doesn't work. So in that instance, especially like if you start treating the typhoid and then still you're still getting the symptoms there. I mean, like there are alternatives out there. That's why it's not important. It's not good for you to self-medicate, because if you self-medicate, you continue to use the same antibiotics and the resistance will keep accumulating. So ideally, the guidelines recommend several antibiotics. So there are first line antibiotics, second line, sometimes even third line antibiotics that you can use. Sometimes you may have to do a combination of antibiotics to target the salmonella. So in that instances, if you start the treatment and it's not working, speak to a healthcare professional. Sometimes you may have to even do a stool culture. You may take your stool and do a stool culture, right? So culture to isolate the organisms in your stool. Now you get sensitivity, so you try various antibiotics against the organism, you know. I heard the right one for you. So sometimes, especially if you've done it a lot of times, you may have to do a stool culture to do it. And another thing about the salmonella, I say, sometimes when you treat the antigens will still be there. Antigens of the organism will still be there. So sometimes you can treat typhoid and then do the serum, the antigen test, and then it will still test positive for the antigen. But sometimes you don't have to be alarmed. So the antigens are the IgG and the IgM. Do you understand? So sometimes after treatment, you can still test positive for the IgG for a while, because the IgG, a positive IgG suggests that a late infection, or sometimes after treatment, the IgG can still test positive. So we have cassettes now, especially the RDT, you know, the typhoid RDT, you know, sometimes can test positive for IgG, but still not like it doesn't necessarily mean that you have the infection, you know. Unless the IgG is positive and the IgM, no, is also positive. So sometimes after treatment, no, the IgM no be negative, but IgG no be positive. That is just normal. So you can repeat it after maybe a couple of weeks to see. Sometimes you repeat after a couple of weeks, never call. But for the matter that IgG not tested positive, no. Nigeria say he still has the infection. Now I no more antibiotics. That also accumulates to the resistance and that kind of thing. And then also it's possible to still have the microorganisms in your GIT and not have the infection. So sometimes it can be a carrier. So sometimes what we see or not, but still so after some time, then it can still infect you. They can go into your bloodstream to cause an infection. So sometimes, you know, what you tell you a bit to me still a car. So sometimes that's why the stool test is very important. So sometimes after the treatment, it's important to even do a stool test to confirm.
Busua nan so yesua de pa typhoid fever ene ade a ye kan na say ade a ye kan eho asem doctor kasa bebre na doctor na o kan asem bi na atoma koma super say ade enti a emma unya typhoid ane kun aye akona no you're finding it so difficult to treat typhoid fever, you know, it keeps coming over and over, no, is because of self-medication. Taking antibiotic without any form of prescriptions, we self-medicate. Yanka say koto antibiotica na ya nom. Doctor person chere say anase wo kan sisu dua say yes ah. Edu mra wonya yare bi a hye typhoid ya ye kan wasemi. Na ya ma wo antibiotic no enya dwuma. The amount of wafa so one da ho tie ho because one no wasoro wo mo say wasoro ma ma fe de obeka bia no edrobe o ma o modro na entimi nko bio enti self medication doctor kan ho asem say ese etimi hwe me no ehwe na ejai na bibi ni a ye ko ye healthcare professionals no ho na omwa emma ye advice papa na ye diso. So doctor, say na typhoid fever and treatment, and how is it like? Can you give us a brief?
So basically the treatment depend upon especially the early stages, no. The early stages comprise of the use of antibiotics. So we do antibiotics and then other symptomatic management. So if it comes with a headache and severe headache and all, you give the antibiotics and add something to manage the headache, and then something to manage the fever. So for very young children, no, we can use suppositories, the paracetamol suppositories to treat the fever associated, and then we can do tepid sponging. Tepid sponging, a rag, towel, to manage the temperature, no, and then feeding, especially for the very young children, you have to feed the person very well. And at this point, you have to make sure that if you like it is well cooked. Now I very warm and send a D. And you say Jania we just see her now for D. And for very young children especially. Now if say and some ye and I say bowls ne spoons ni we ne be Jania momo no. And say ye because the if the Jania everyone say previously Jania that is contaminated with the organism now. Now whole bowls ni mu the organisms will still be in the bowls, and then when you feed the child now, you still reinfect the child with it. So it's very important that we maintain very hygienic conditions with the bowls, the spoon, and the accessories associated with the food cooking, no, and the food materials. So we treat them very well to get rid of the organisms. What I say, so the bear with me, a boy who buy with the treatment. So the treatment has to do with mainly antibiotics. So the major therapy has to do with antibiotic therapy. But you have to see your healthcare professional to give you the right antibiotic.
Okay.
So I won't mention any antibiotics here, but you need to see the healthcare professional to give you the right antibiotic based on your antibiotic history or antibiotic consumption pattern.
Okay.
Because of certain conditions, you may have been on particular antibiotic for a long time. In that instances, you may not use that same antibiotics again. You may have to use an alternative. That's why it is important to see the professionals to assist you.
Yeah, it is important to see your healthcare professionals to assist you. Sana doctor kachre and say hu hia pa say do mra ye wo sa symptoms ya wakeka bebrebe nyina ye be hu your healthcare professional na watimi assist you. Doctor, yensu ayanyum so e.
And also so sometimes nsuo can be contaminated with the organism. The Salmonella typhoid. Sometimes some of the sachet water. I remember some time ago. Like it was very rampant. So they had to shut down the sachet company because when they took samples of the bag, they almost swap it, almost empty the contents, and almost swap it on the quarter. And then they noticed the salmonella in some of the rubbers now. So sometimes the water
I see. And most of the sachet water no to the bi abanum onuma enche na aboy ade no. Enu nti omo ye sachet water companies na wo Ghana e be sere mo ne die mu ara. Aya mo test mo workers no yie. Mo nye omo checks, my health checks. O say yenye checks. Na yen hwe say obia ho wo hygienic na ansa no ndo mo nsa na ye nsuo na abra bi say mo na ko nsuo no mu wi a wakam obawo mma betu nkosua na ato ama yensu ya fa nom ni mi na fe ama yade to ti na onya typhoid e say nom bottle water ni akachi say most sachet water companies na bia onye obo workers no checks ti mesre mo say monye mo workers no checks ya yensu yenye ho checks say be ya salmonella virus na anase bacteria no bacteria virus bacteria mesu de wa hapa salmonella bacteria yesi ono de typhoid ebra wo ne me no yetimi atu nase ahonidie ene fapem yo ene so dwuma de ba na wieye na ansa no doctor wo nsem pem of a final word.
Well, I think that like the hygienic condition is very very important, and then in a community, it can spread in a community because of unhygienic conditions. And so if I'm a carrier, not maybe a public toilet, you keep the public toilets very well.
Good.
Not if I go and use such public toilets, insects, these way not about your fee. And I say, before use that same washroom, no, I pick it the bacteria, hello, it's no bit out. Transmission keep going on. Maybe I could you don't even sanitize on did not already. So the community effort is also really important when it comes to the type of people. I say you be maintaining say a community boom. Now you against like unhygienic conditions. You say especially baby public toilets you keep that places very very neat because of the transmission, the fecal oral transmission route. Especially with the public toilets you have to keep the place very very neat. Now baby I told you gutters near so say at least baby I told you environment very very clean. So the bear we end up selling salmonella
to people.
Exactly.
Salmonella bacteria. Busia for and the mesua de ba ko say salmonella bacteria wo and now the typhoid the brain na the doctor can say yam pese ma salmonella bacteria I spread it all over. You making sure say you di anasa you keep your environment clean. Your toilet, public toilet. Doctor say hot it through. Eduane tonfo ndo do nada. E ho no mkokogya omonai. Enti se salmonella yi okogya na na se once na bi kosiso a. O de besi na di na me no mienu na yakoto na yadi. Na afa yenya yare ya. Enti na normally wudi abonten a, di abonten duane na bebre a. Behu na akote typhoid amount because eduane e oton duane no. Okogya nan ne nsapo wa hohoro ne yi. O de salmonella na be kan duane no. ɛna me no mmienu nso yɛakɔtɔ adi. All too soon, we've come to the end of this great educative health talk show with me, myself, and I, with my adorable Dr. Bobson Ateko. My name is, of course, Afro-songtress Lily M, aka Maame. I said you can call me anytime you want. Then we talk health, because your health is important to me, because your health is your own life as well. And then so yaba adwumadie wabepem say talk yaba na wiye. Madam asese mo hwe me. Asese won so wahwe me na wasua de. Wo de comment bia ha wo bia no bibi bia kire wadwen bia no, just leave it in the comment section. And you can also leave your number. We will get in touch with you and we'll get interactive. All your questions will be answered. Thank you so much. See you next time. Let's talk health. My health checks, saving lives. Bye-bye.